Good evening. Beijing has announced that former National Security Chief Zhao Yongkang, one of the most powerful men in China over the past decade, is being investigated for corruption. His downfall has huge implications for public confidence in the country's legal system.
It's taken the central government more than half a year to confirm that Zhao Yongkang is in trouble for suspected corruption. According to China watchers, that's because Beijing was worried that disgracing the man who was in charge of the country's law and order for more than a decade would cause a huge embarrassment to the Communist Party and shake public confidence. The party's graft watchdog announced through state media today that the 71-year-old retired national security chief was being investigated for suspected serious disciplinary violation, officials speak for corruption. It was reported back in early December that Zhou had been placed under virtual house arrest. He's the most senior Chinese leader to be investigated for corruption since the Communist Party took over the country in 1949. Zhou was a member of the all-powerful Politburo Standing Committee that rules China and was the country's security czar, overseeing the police, domestic intelligence, paramilitary, judges and prosecutors until he retired in 2012. It's understood that he became too powerful, and his fall from grace has also been linked to the downfall of former Chongqing Party boss Bo Xilai. Zhou was said to have hesitated to act against Bo, a political star who was destined for the halls of power in Beijing, until his wife was implicated in the murder of a British businessman. Zhou is the highest-ranking casualty of President Xi Jinping's promise to stamp out corruption and punish tigers as well as flies who break the rules and abuse their power.
Here in Hong Kong, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying is urging all government officials to oppose the Occupy Central movement. He dismissed concerns that he is taking sides in the political reform debate and further polarizing a deeply divided society. ATV's Emily Siu reports.
On Saturday, the chief executive declared that he would add his name to the Alliance for Peace and Democracy signature campaign against the Occupy Central movement. Speaking before his cabinet meeting this morning, Leung Chun-ying stressed that he would keep his word. I will head to one of the street booths to sign my name when the time is convenient, said Leung. But noting that there will be a media scrum when he signs up, the chief executive said arrangements will have to be made to minimize inconvenience to shops and pedestrians. Since Saturday, several principal government officials have signed their names to oppose the pro-democracy civil disobedience campaign. Occupy leaders have vowed to gather 10,000 people to blockade Central to pressure Beijing into granting Hong Kong genuine universal suffrage for the 2017 chief executive election if the public is not satisfied with the government's proposals. Leung brushed aside concerns that he's polarizing society further by blatantly taking sides and that it will be harder to forge a consensus now. Any law-abiding citizen will be against such large-scale law-breaking behavior, he said. That should be the attitude of all officials. He went on, there's no middle ground between abiding by and breaking the law. The consensus is to abide by the law. He added that the government will ensure there is sufficient time for all sides to express their views during the second round of consultation on constitutional reform, expected to kick off later this year. Core Alliance members met the press this afternoon to unveil plans to make the 17th of August, the last day of their anti-Occupy campaign, a Peace and Democracy Day. Convener Robert Chow expects at least 50,000 supporters to march from Victoria Park to Chater Garden in Central, where they'll place paper flowers at a shrine for democracy.
I can assure you our desire is to run a very peaceful, very orderly, rather speedy rally. And we want to demonstrate to the rest of Hong Kong that this may be the model rally people should try to follow.
Stickers will be handed out to help the Alliance keep track of the number of participants. The Alliance was given a boost when anti-Occupy posters were plastered on more than 1,000 minibuses operating on 50 routes across Hong Kong. The drivers fear their business would suffer should democracy campaigners take over the streets of Central. In another development, Central and Western District Councillor Chen Choi-hee said he'll be recruiting lawyers to provide free legal advice to small and medium-sized businesses that may be affected by the Occupy protests.
The leaders of Occupy Central say the first ever meeting with the government's point woman on political reform was disappointing and non-productive. They rejected Chief Secretary Carrie Lam's demand to scrap their campaign. Here's Emily Siu.
The first face-to-face talks between the organizers of Occupy Central and the Chief Secretary didn't go well, according to Carrie Lam.
I don't think we could convince the conveners of Occupy Central to drop their plan. As you all know, they have been planning this movement for quite some time.
Lam says she tried to convince the Occupy leaders that a full-scale street blockade of Central to push for genuine universal suffrage would severely affect normal operations in the business district. And she warned that the protests won't sway Beijing.
I think it would not be possible to try to coerce the central authorities into a particular position on this important subject of selection of the chief executive by threatening to do some sort of action like Occupy Central.
Occupy leaders Fanny Tai, Chan Kin-man and Chu Yu-ming described the long-anticipated meeting with Lam as disappointing.
I cannot say that the meeting is productive. It seems that the chief secretary still has no idea what she is going to do in the coming months.
Tai said Lam asked them to scrap their campaign without providing any concrete solutions to resolve the political deadlock over the city's constitutional development. The University of Hong Kong law professor went on to criticize the anti-Occupy signature campaign organized by the pro-Beijing Alliance for Peace and Democracy. Alliance leaders claim that 930,000 people have signed up so far, exceeding the 700,000 ballots cast in support of civil nomination in Occupy's unofficial referendum in May. But Tai said quality trumps quantity.
The campaign itself has not given a clear goals to the public, and also there's a lot of misleading statements.
He said, on the other hand, Occupy's plebiscite gave the government an indication whether it can win LegCo approval for its reform package.
If any proposal from the government that cannot satisfy international standard, it will be vetoed. This is the political reality that the government must face and cannot be just dismissing it by referring to any other actions taken by any other social groups, because votes casted, views expressed it, legislative councillors bound by that.
Tai said government officials, including Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying, who support the alliance, were exercising poor political judgment. Lam herself stopped short of saying whether she would join the signature campaign, although some of her colleagues have already done so.
Health Minister Ko Weng-man says Hong Kong will not back down in a dispute with the mainland over resuming live chicken imports. That means the ban will continue as long as experts on this side of the border are not satisfied with quarantine and control measures. In January, more than 20,000 chickens at the Cheung Sha Wan wholesale market were slaughtered after the discovery of the deadly H7N9 virus in imports from across the border. The market was closed for 3 weeks, and in February, the government imposed a 4-month ban on mainland chicken imports to allow authorities to set up a segregation facility. A site in Ta Koo Ling where local and mainland chickens will be kept separately is now ready to open its doors. The 4-month live import ban expired in June, but the city has yet to receive chickens from the mainland. Health Secretary Ko Weng-man said this is because mainland experts insist that the H7N9 virus is less likely to cause a disease among poultry, and suggested another set of quarantine or infection control measures. But that's not good enough for experts on the Hong Kong side, which means the stalemate will continue.
I think over the point of quarantine and infection control measures, I do not see any possibility that the Hong Kong government or Hong Kong expert will agree to adopt another set of standards to protect the Hong Kong people from the threat of H7N9.
Regarding plans for a central slaughterhouse to reduce disease risks, Ko said a decision has yet to be made. But the government will appoint a consultant soon to gauge the public's views on whether the sale of live chickens should be banned.
On this particular point, I'm afraid we have not reached a decision, because we have earlier on said that we would like to have another look on the policy. And soon the government will appoint a consultant to help us in soliciting the public's opinion as well as understudying the question to help the government in coming up with a decision as to whether in the long run we should have live poultry supply at all in the Hong Kong market.
But banning live chicken sales permanently may be a difficult task, as many locals prefer fresh instead of frozen meat. McDonald's has handed over to the government tons of fast food products supplied by the mainland firm at the centre of a rotten meat scandal. McDonald's had initially denied importing supplies from Hu seafood factories. Hundreds of boxes of food, including fries from Guangzhou Hu Si, were taken to an open-air car park in Two Moon this afternoon. There were also packages of chicken nuggets and chicken fillet, while some corn spilled out from containers. McDonald's announced on Sunday that it would hand over all food products made by Hu Si factories on the mainland to Hong Kong government food and hygiene inspectors. A member of staff from the Centre for Food Safety was on hand to monitor the transfer of packages. The department said about 22 tons of food, including 16 tons of chicken, 660 kilos of beef, and 5.4 tons of vegetables were collected from McDonald's today. It's a far cry from the fast food chain's initial claim that it did not buy supplies from the disgraced mainland supplier. The scandal erupted after a mainland TV station exposed unhygienic practices at Shanghai Hu Si, where expired meat was reprocessed and repackaged before being supplied to fast food chains on the mainland, Hong Kong and Japan. The MTR was hit by yet another service disruption today, this time on the Tsuen Wan line due to a signal failure during the morning rush hour. It's the sixth interruption since last Tuesday. ATV's Winner Wong reports.
Passengers commuting between two of the busiest MTR stations were in for a frustrating time during rush hour this morning. The Tsuen Wan line was hit by a signaling failure that lasted nearly 2 hours. Trains ran at 5-minute intervals between the two stations and 3-minute intervals along the rest of the line. Even when the technical glitch was fixed at 8:18 a.m., the backlog of passengers continued to cause problems. Commuters were advised to leave their homes earlier or take alternative transport. The MTRC has been hit by 6 disruptions since last Tuesday, 5 of them due to signal failure. Democratic Party lawmaker Wu Chi-wai, a member of LegCo's transport panel, says it's high time the government stepped in. He has no faith in the MTRC's own investigations and wants the Electrical and Mechanical Services Department to find out whether there are underlying problems with the signaling system. The railway operator had a progress report today on the South Island Line extension, which is 6 months behind schedule because of construction problems expanding Admiralty Station. Senior construction engineer Jimmy Poon reported that the project is about 70% complete. The new line will have an unmanned driving system, which the Disneyland Resort line has been using since 2005. Poon says compared with what the majority of MTR lines are currently using, this newer system will be more reliable with better technology. The South Island Line East starts at Admiralty and runs through Ocean Park, Wong Chuk Hang, and Lei Tung to South Horizons. Although the operator says it's still aiming for the original target of 2015 to start the new service, the line may not be ready until 2016. Winna Wong, ATV News.
Overseas, Israel has knocked out the only power plant in the Gaza Strip as it intensifies the bombardment of the Palestinians. The Israeli Prime Minister has warned of a long conflict ahead.